But Brandon, let's go back to the NBA side of things, and we are taking a look at another two prospects, pitting them together, and kind of deciding maybe which one we would like. And this is a bunch of second-rounders, I'm going to say. Cassius Winston, Michigan State, they are going on to the Final Four after knocking off the Duke Blue Devils this past weekend, and then who should also be in the Final Four, as Virginia escaped their game. He put up 42 in a loss, the first overtime loss for Purdue all season, Carsen Edwards. So just like we did for the Culver Reddish, I completely blanked on the prospects we talked about earlier. We're going to do the same thing here, but before we get into that, make sure to rate and review the podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Really means the world to us for that 5-star rating, and it helps us get into the ears of more people. But Brandon, let's start off whoever you would like to start with. Carsen Edwards, Cassius Winston. I'm going to let you take the floor. Who would you like to start talking about first for this kind of Winston versus Edwards segment?
Well, I'd love to start talking about the guy who I thought played the best in this tournament, and that's for Carsen Edwards.
Okay.
I mean, as we know, Matt has
exactly what Matt said.
Matt has come on a number of times, and he has said that. And I was texting with Matt. In the first, was it the first game? It was a game. It was the game against Villanova where he scored 42 the first time, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this kid is crazy." And he said, "This is the Carsen Edwards that we can see, but that we don't see enough."
He said that on the podcast. It's which Carsen Edwards are we going to see? And we saw the 42-point Carsen Edwards in, 2 of the 4 games that they played? And the just phenomenal stat was he is the first player to have 4 25-point games in the tournament, 4 straight 25-point games in the tournament since Steph Curry did it in 2008.
I mean, you just look at this guy, and without him, without his awesome three-point shooting, 9 of 16 against Villanova, not as good against Tennessee, went 5 of 14, and then 10 of 19 against Virginia. Purdue's not in these games. Because of Carsen Edwards, he put them either into the game or soared them way past their opponent. Also, his ability to drive to the hoop. How many times, Ricky, obviously his three-point shooting was phenomenal, but how many times have we seen Carsen Edwards just take it then coast to coast and just go all the way, drive all the way down the lane, know he's going to get hit, and roll it right in, count it in a foul, or even if it wasn't a foul, going the other way, 2 points for Purdue and getting back on defense. He's a phenomenal athlete, and he's a phenomenal player. No,
for me, the thing with Carsen Edwards, and I said this firmly, I got to look it up on Twitter and give credit to the person who tweeted at us, but we got a tweet about Carsen Edwards over the weekend. I say we because it was MVP also. Oh, it was Mike 2K. Mike 2K said, "How high did Carsen Edwards' stock rise for you guys tonight?" This was after the Virginia game on the 30th. "I understand he might be a tad too small, but man, can he put the ball in the bucket. He looks like a Shabazz Napier type of guy to make me, or a Trey Burke. Could be a 6-man. And my response was, I'd say he played himself into the second round this March. And then Mike 2K came back with, after tonight, I could see the Warriors or Rockets at the end of the first, honestly. But like my thought is, Carsen Edwards with this tournament solidified himself in my mind as a for sure second round pick. Like there might have been some people before March saying like, well, you know, Carsen Edwards could be a second round guy, but he's way too inconsistent. I don't know if I'd want my team spending a second round pick on him. But from what we have seen in March from Carsen Edwards, I think, and I'm going to put this, and Mike 2K is 100% correct with his 6-man comment, because the pro comp that I'm going to kind of work towards for this is kind of a Lou Williams of the Clippers, where I know Lou Will has been in the league a lot and wasn't exactly what he was now coming out of college, but a smaller guy, Lou Will, 6'1", about 170. Carsen Edwards, 6 foot, 195. And that's what Lou Will is, a guy who comes off the bench for the Clippers, and he's got one goal: put the ball in the bucket. And he's had some phenomenal shots, some phenomenal buzzer beaters, and I could see Carsen Edwards being the same team for a team at his floor. His floor to me is Lou Will, a six-man who can come off the bench, put the ball in the bucket, and give you points off of your bench, being that first guy off of it to relieve a starter.
And he just brings a lot of energy. He brings a lot of energy to the floor.
And he plays with passion.
Passion, and there's just an excitement around his game.
Plays with passion,
fun.
but he doesn't foul. He only averaged 2 fouls.
He's not out of
game.
control.
Exactly.
He's not out of control
like
passion.
The turnovers,
He's not Draymond Green, I'm mad at you, I'm kicking you in the balls now, getting teed up passion.
Exactly. Like, he's not going to be a guy that racks up assist numbers. He's not going to be a guy that rebounds the ball. He's going to be a guy that has one goal: I'm going to put the ball in the bucket. And that's why I think he'd be a quality six-man for a team at the next level, because he is a phenomenal scorer and has the shooting ability. Like, that 10 of 19 from 3, I saw that and I was like, first off, I know the NBA 3 is deeper than the college 3.
He taking them deep.
Well, and my first thought was, is this what I can expect? I'm not expecting 10 of 19 every night, but is this the percentage I am looking at as over the year from Carsen Edwards, that 40 to 50, or am I going to see what he averaged per game this year, which was 35% from 3? Which average am I going to see from Carsen Edwards from 3? That's
maybe somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
maybe
like
somewhere in the middle.
If we're sitting around 38 to 40%, that would be a little bit better than the 35. Like, he averaged about 3.8 made threes to an average of 10.6 taken threes. So he's taking them. He just wasn't making a ton of them.
I mean, you look at Carsen Edwards, and for the purpose of this comment, and Ryan Klein, and look at where they were taking some of those threes from. I mean, downtown. They weren't taking
James Brown.
Right, yes. They weren't taking them right there, right by the line. I mean, they're pulling up, step back, boom, knocking it right down. Defender in their face, and it's confidence. It's confidence for Carsen Edwards, too. He's a confident player. He plays, like you said, passion. He also plays with a chip on his shoulders and confidence. And that's what makes him so, I think, for Purdue, that's what made him so elite. That's what made him an elite player on that team, because he got hot. He was playing with passion, but he was playing with confidence, and he wasn't rattled. He wasn't rattled. It was really he was fun to watch in this tournament. He's been fun to watch for Purdue fans for as long as I can remember. You know, it seems like these last couple of years now, it's just been the Carsen Edwards show for the Purdue Boilermakers, and they're going to miss him for sure, because he's a special guy, a special talent, but that's what you're taking to the NBA. And I also don't believe that it's going to be one of those guys where, man, we heard so much about him in college. He, is setting all these records in the tournament. He gets to the NBA and fizzles out. I don't think that's going to be him. I think that you're right. He's someone who, coming off the bench, is going to provide a great spark for a team. And again, passion, confidence, and excitement.
What about Cassius Winston in your mind? Because to me, the thing that I wonder with Cassius is, so at the next level NBA, if you were going to be that Carsen Edwards type that I said, that six-man scorer off the bench, that to me is like a perfect what you want as a six-man, somebody who's going to be a scorer off the bench. Not saying Cassius can't score. He did average 18 a night in college this year, but he to me is more of a guy who, he's not going to go just get points for himself.
No.
He's going to distribute the ball as well. Could he be a guy that teams look at as a second-round prospect and say, hey, he's not going to be the type of scorer that maybe Carsen Edwards is. He's going to be a little bit more of a facilitator. Could teams still want that as a six-man second-round pick even though he's more of a facilitator than just a pure scorer.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there was a reason why he was the Big Ten Player of the Year. It's because he does a whole lot, and it's not just scoring.
Yeah.
Michigan State wouldn't be the team that they were without him feeding the ball to a number of their big men or their three-point shooters. It's his leadership, too. That's another thing that Cassius Winston brings to his team and to whatever he's doing. It's leadership. This guy, again, too, like Carsen Edwards, has confidence out there on the floor, and he has, I think, great court presence and great floor awareness, and he understands where guys are and where they're going to be. Backdoor cuts, working the ball into them, being able to be in sync with his players. That's why he's gotten so many assists. That's why he's been able to really run this Michigan State offense, and why you get a guy like him coming off the bench. He's going to be able to feed it into the guys who are going to be your primary scorers, but he also can score. He's a guy who's shown that he can score, and he can score from three. He's got a good pull-up jumper mid-range. He's a fun guy to watch.
And the question, I'm just going to look it up really quick. Here's the question I want to ask you, though. And we're kind of jumping the gun with Cassius a little bit here. I think maybe Edwards, too. Yeah, we're jumping the gun with these guys, too. I want to ask you this question, starting with Winston, then you can ask the same thing, or answer the same thing with Edwards. Is there a chance that they stay? Because both of them, 3-year guys. Do they stay for their senior season?
So with Cassius Winston, if they win the national championship, he is not staying. If they don't win the national championship, he might be talking to a former Michigan State teammate in Bridges and saying, hey, you stayed. How'd it work out? Type of deal. Carsen Edwards, again, in talking with Matt, doesn't sound like he's going to be back.
This
sounds like this was it for Carsen Edwards, that he was going to be moving on.
Because also the thing you got to play into as well with these guys is, like, I bring up Daniel Gafford, I bring up Jonte Porter. Where last year, 2 guys, their draft stock was where it was, and they said, I'm going to come back because maybe I can inch myself up a little bit. I can improve that stock. For either of these guys, Winston, I see as a guy that if he comes back, could possibly up his stock a little bit. And by up his stock, I mean could play himself into, because right now, if you look at Tankathon and you look at the point guards for their big board, you've got the guys in the first round like John Morant, Darius Garland, Kobe White, Trey Jones, Shamori Pons, and then Ty Jerome is right there at the end. But then the second round guys, Marcus Howard, Carsen Edwards. They don't even have Cassius Winston listed for their top full 2 rounds of a big board. That to me is why with Cassius, I wouldn't be surprised even if they won the national. Like, if he wins the national championship, I agree with you. I could see him leaving because it's like, well, what else do I have? Like, what else do I have to do in college? Like, I've hit the pinnacle and I've won the national championship, unless he wants to try to win 2 in a row, which is really hard to do. But I feel like Cassius could be a guy where, hey, if I stay, let's say they don't win the national championship, I'm going to stay. I can up my draft stock a little bit because I know each draft class is different. Don't know what point guards he's going to have to go up against later on, but like there won't be a Marcus Howard. There won't be a Carsen Edwards. There won't be a Shamori Pons at that point in the draft. There won't be a Ty Jerome because these guys go on to the NBA, that he might be able to play his draft stock up to where he is a for sure second round pick next year. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Where Carsen Edwards, it kind of seems like, in my mind, I'll ask you, that his stock is pretty much solidified.
His stock,
is the highest.
Carsen Edwards, his stock is at the highest that it possibly could be.
Like, he couldn't come back, and even if he was more consistent, wouldn't be higher.
The only way that would happen with Carsen Edwards in my mind is that he comes back and he takes a step back.
And then people go, ooh, good thing he didn't come out because we were going to draft him.
I'm not saying that he would,
yeah,
but he's at the peak right now.
There's more to hurt than...
People are talking about him. Yep. People are thinking, oh, could he be rising? Mm-hmm. Could he be rising in these drafts?
Well, it's like, look at Mike 2K. He said end of the first round. That he was thinking that he wouldn't be surprised if a team at the end of the first round took Carsen Edwards. That's kind of where the hype is right now with him.
Absolutely. So I think that Cassius Winston has more of an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Again, in my mind, if they win the national championship, he's saying, this was great. Coach Izzo, this was outstanding. I loved it. I did what I was part of a team that accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. I'm heading out. Mm-hmm. But if they get so close and they lose to Texas Tech or they lose to Virginia,
which is going to be a tough opponent,
or to Auburn, mm-hmm. I think that he's saying, I was this close. I got one more year left. We can do this.
Yeah.
I'm coming back one more year, and I'm going to try and see if I can raise up my stock a little bit more mm-hmm. from what I did this year. That's just my thought. That's my initial thought.
I want to tag one conversation at the end of this one, because I know I told you I didn't ask you this in the Culver Reddish, because Reddish is his teammate, but I'm going to kind of tag this in at the end to the Winston Edwards discussion, because we're talking about staying or leaving. In your mind, what is Trey Jones going to do? Is he going to be at Duke next year, or is he going to go to the NBA draft?
I think he's going to be at Duke.
Okay.
I think he's going to be at Duke. He was so heartbroken.
Just
in that game on Sunday. He was so heartbroken. And honestly, I understand that they talked with RJ and Cam, after the game, and, mm-hmm. and I think Zion, I didn't see that one, but I saw, mm-hmm. I think it was RJ and Cam they're talking there. They're upset, they're bummed. They're going to the NBA.
Yeah.
Trey Jones,
RJ.
Though, I think he's going to have a more illustrious college career than he's going to see in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And I think that he wants to keep that alive. If he can, I think he'll be back.
Well, the thing I'm going to look up really quick is, give me a second. Forgot to put in college for there because he's an NBA player now. But I would almost look at his brother, Tyus Jones, because Tyus was a guy where only 1 year at Duke, that was a Duke team. Let me see who exactly was on that roster. So, yeah, that was the Jahlil Okafor. So, like Jahlil Okafor, Justin Winslow, Grayson Allen. That was Allen's freshman year when he had that amazing championship game. And it was kind of like, here I am to play for Duke. And that's where Grayson Allen became a household name. Marshall Plumlee was on that team. Semi Ojeleye, I think that's how you say it, was on that team. NBA guys now. At this point, Quinn Cook as well was the older guy on that team. I kind of almost wonder if Trey is going to talk to his brother Tyus a little bit, because Tyus is a guy that left. He got drafted at the end of the first round, 24th pick. Hey, guess what? If I look at Tankathon, where's Trey Jones going right now? 23rd in their mock draft. In ours, I had him as high as maybe 17 to the Boston Celtics. But I wonder if he's going to talk to his brother Tyus and say, hey, what do you think? What happened to you? Like, you came out after 1 year at Duke after being the guy. Like, he wasn't the number one guy. It was Jahlil Okafor was the number one. Justice Winslow was the second scorer. And then Grayson Allen had the championship game that took him by storm. But I'll say the 4 years that Tyus has been in the NBA hasn't been a phenomenal NBA career. Like, the most points he's scored was this season. He's had 6 points per game.
You mean Trey?
This year? No, Tyus. I'm talking his NBA stats.
Tyus. I'm losing you.
Yeah, so Tyus in the NBA has not had a lustrous so far NBA career. Yes, he's in Minnesota. I understand that. But, like, I wonder if Trey asks Tyus, and maybe that plays into it, where maybe Tyus goes, hey, you know what? If your heart's set on going back to Duke, you can go back to Duke. Like, there is nothing wrong with going back.
So here's also my question, though. You're one of my my NBA guys.
Yeah.
How successful is Trey Jones going to be able to be at the next level?
Depends on where he goes. That's the question.
Hold on, though.
Yeah.
When he can't score the basketball efficiently. And now I understand that he did have a good game. He had that one game. He didn't have that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. He had that one game.
But Cam wasn't playing that game. I believe that was the game Cam was not playing.
But look at so many of the games. Again, I know it's a taste of the tournament, but that's when everyone's watching.
Yeah, you're talking the VT game.
Yes, he had a really good game that game. He was outstanding.
But the first time they played VT, only had 9 points.
But it's what's his impact going to be at the next level? Good defender, lockdown defender, really good, not as good as a Cassius Winston, but really good at being able to move an offense and work an offense. And the offense for Duke has flowed through him. I know people can say it's flowed through Zion and RJ, but it's flowed through Trey Jones. How good is he going to be at the next level for the NBA?
So I'm watching a video here it's ESPN on Trey Jones' stat page, and they're doing an interview after the game, and RJ Barrett he doesn't have to, but honestly he does, because that's what you do to your buddies, is he's got to put his arm around Trey and console him, because Trey is so distraught after losing that Michigan State game that it kind of just breaks your heart to see him like that. But that's an interesting thing that I thought about when I saw Trey Jones break down like that. I was like, a couple years ago, Adam Morrison does almost the same thing, and we're making fun of him for it. Years later, Trey Jones does it, and Trey Jones isn't the only one. It's just for that Duke game he was. And nowadays, it's like, oh, look at that guy. He's showing emotion. Where when Adam Morrison did it, it was like, oh, look at this crybaby. He lost the game. Men don't cry. Just kind of made me think of how our society and culture has changed, especially with the tournament and losing games and showing emotion. I think the best decisions for Trey would be to go back. I don't think he has to come out, because, like you mentioned with the NBA side, it all depends on where he fits. If he's going to for sure go to Boston, then sure, come out. That'd be a great fit for Trey Jones. But if you're going to go, let's say, to Brooklyn, let's say to Detroit, like, you know what? Maybe I'll come back. Like, if you're going to go to Cleveland, maybe I'll come back and go and try to work on some stuff. Because, like, for me, the glaring thing that comes out to me is his 3-point percentage of what he hit. Not even averaged 1 a game when shooting 3 a game, hit 26%. So for me, I would say Trey Jones should come back. Cassius will come back, because I don't think they're going to win the national title. And then Carsen Edwards moves on. Any final thoughts about anything we talked about? I know I threw the Trey Jones at you last second, but anything with Cassius, Carsen, or Trey to end the podcast?
Yeah.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. Also, make sure to hit us up on Patreon, patreon.com/MostValuedPodcast. We got new rewards for you guys, and they are great. So go ahead and check those out. Make sure to also rate and review the podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Every 5-star rating really helps us out and gets us into more ear holes of people that like college sports and college basketball and football. But thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.